Hey everybody, and welcome to Craft of the Yeti. About a year ago I made this magnetic game board, and at the time I was playing a lot of Frostgrave and wanted to mimic a large cityscape. If you're curious to see how this side was made, go check out the video linked above. This board has served me well, and the fact that it's magnetic has decreased the chaos created by table bumps. Today we're going to create a magnetic grass board on the opposite side. The first step is to attach large sheets of metal. I picked these up at my local hardware store in the duct section. The metal sheets are 3 feet by 2 feet, and my board is roughly 3 feet by 3 feet. Having learned from last time, I overlaid one piece onto the other and traced the joint with a Sharpie. The metal also overhangs one side by a smidge. With the proper dimensions traced, I cut the metal sheets with some tin snips I inherited from my dad. To provide a place for future dirt and grass to adhere to, I'm going to prime the metal with some Rust-Oleum rattle can primers. While I wait for the primer to cure, I touch up the trim of the board. I wasn't concerned with this side during the previous build, so there are some spots that are white, and it'll be much easier to do now when there isn't a bunch of debris to dodge. I used this Loctite PL Premium Construction adhesive last time, and it's held really well. When I purchased it last time, I just made sure that it was designed to stick to both metal and foam. This adhesive does require a caulk gun, and I happen to have one on hand from other home improvement projects, but I don't think they're very expensive either if you're interested. I applied the adhesive liberally to the XPS foam, then placed the newly primed metal sheets. I pressed the metal into the adhesive and smoothed everything out. A little leaked out here and there, but I cleaned it up with some paper towels. I then left this to cure overnight. The next morning I hit the seams with some cheap black paint. This really wasn't necessary as everything will get covered later on, but I didn't know that at the time, and I didn't want pink foam showing up. Next comes the dirt. I will be attaching it with tacky glue. The dirt itself comes from this 50-pound bag of play sand I acquired from Lowe's. I bought this years ago and have barely touched it, as I mainly use it for mini bases and then occasionally to add some detail to my 3D printed terrain. At first I did a little proof of concept test section. I have seen quite a few people collect extra flocking via the sock and vacuum method, and I figured it would work here too. It does, it just isn't very efficient. I was happy with the test and proceeded to cover the entire board, one strip at a time. I did 4 to 6 inch strips of sand across the entire board at a time. This was about the right size to get quite a bit done without letting the glue cure before I could throw sand on top. I also ditched the tiny shot glass cup and moved to a bigger spray paint lid. I worked in separate strips like this so that I could have multiple sections curing at the same time. I found that if I did a section right next to another, the glue wasn't all the way cured and I'd undo some of my previous work when I was smearing the glue. My finger would hit the old section and ruin it, so I did 2 rounds of strips that weren't touching and let the glue cure for a few hours between the 2 different sets. Hopefully that all makes sense. After vacuuming the first row, I found that I didn't like how thin the sand was. I really like the look when there's more of it left on the board. It felt more believable to me, and I also couldn't see the metal through the thicker layer, and I could in a few spots after vacuuming. Time to test the magnet strength on the thicker layer. The sand hasn't been glued down, so I put a sheet of paper down and grabbed a mini without a magnet in its base and one with a magnet. I placed them on a sheet of paper to help prevent them from getting dirty. I have small magnets in my mini bases and they worked out okay. In my terrain I have much stronger magnets and they worked really well in the thicker sand. I then tipped the board to see if the mini magnets were strong enough and discovered a much quicker way than vacuuming to remove the excess sand. And boy, was there excess sand. This is left over from about half the board being done. I gathered it all on some packing paper and carefully dumped it back into the play sand bag. I didn't risk doing this on camera. With the whole board covered in a thin layer, I spent some time picking up any rocks I thought were too large and then ensuring everything was really stuck before adding a larger layer of sand. I dumped it as evenly as I could and then smoothed the sand with a spare paintbrush. To lock the sand in place, I used isopropyl alcohol and watered down tacky glue. I really had to soak the sand in IPA before adding the glue. The alcohol reduces surface tension and allows the glue to spread out more easily. I left this to cure overnight and was pleasantly surprised at how well it worked the next morning. I had, however, made a huge mess on the guest bed. I'll clean that up later and make sure to wash the bedding. The sand gives the impression of a very dry landscape, and I'd like to imitate something more lush and green. In my very limited experience, I've noticed that dirt tends to be much darker in areas where vegetation grows well naturally. Previously, I have also made up some trees with the darker soil that I like. To achieve this look, I'm going to use an oil wash, and this took quite a while and took some experimentation to get the correct color, but I'm very happy with how it turned out and believe it was definitely worth the effort. Next comes grass. In my research, watching way more YouTube than I probably should, I determined that many layers and a variety of flock would help me achieve the look I wanted. For this first round, I used 3 shades of coarse turf, 2 shades of fine turf, and 2 varieties of static grass, all from Woodland Scenics. I took turns dusting the board with the various flocking and used a couple of them more than once. I don't own a static grass applicator and honestly didn't want the grass to stick up, as I think it'll probably get smushed down during play anyway, so I just dusted that on as well. I sealed this layer with the same method I used for the sand and left it to dry for 8 hours or so. I really like how this looks. I love that there are dirt patches sticking through, and there are also rocks that are about to scale scattered about. I do wish there was a bit more green though, so to fix that, I'm going to use this spray adhesive and Woodland Scenics blended turf. I will then seal everything with some matte varnish. The spray adhesive is incredibly sticky and gets everywhere, so I did this outside. Last time I used this spray indoors, I spent weeks cleaning it off my hobby desk. The clear coat will then remove any stickiness that is left and will help seal all the flocking in. The very last step is to clean up the edges. Now, onto the good bits. Thanks a ton for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe for more.